Hey everybody, Norm here. Before we start this episode of Still Untitled, I want to thank the sponsor for this week. That sponsor is Tunnel Bear. Does it give you the creeps when your internet provider tracks your web browsing? If today's lack of online privacy brings out your inner grizzly bear, then you should try Tunnel Bear. Tunnel Bear is a simple VPN app that makes it easy to browse privately and enjoy more open internet on your desktop and mobile devices. Tunnel Bear is a top-rated privacy policy and does not log your activity. Try it free with 500 megabytes and no credit card required. To get started, just go to tunnelbear.com/untitled. Now on with the show.
Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Adam.
I'm Norm.
I'm Simone.
Welcome, Simone.
Hey, welcome everybody else too. Everybody's welcome.
I know.
You're welcome.
Yes, hello everyone out there.
There's a couple people out there who aren't welcome. I don't know who they are. I don't know.
They know who they are.
They know you know
know
who
who
you
you
are.
are.
You're gonna
Yeah.
leave a shitty comment that nobody. Here's a question I think all people should ask before they put a comment on a website.
Mm-hmm.
Am I putting this comment in to add to the conversation, or am I putting it in so that I have added to the conversation?
Very good point.
Yeah,
There's a great difference because
the thing is, I don't think that the people who do those comments are going to understand what the difference is.
I
think you're
totally agree
expecting
with you.
too much of their brain capacity.
It sounds like that's a philosophy that you could apply not only to internet commenting, but to conversation in general.
Yes, one could. One could absolutely. Some people have a way with words, and some people.
Hey, Adam, I noticed, and we had this in last week's episode, you have some eyes on the table.
I do.
I know that you're using them in the future project, but I also noticed you got these eyes from Shenzhen,
Yes.
right? And Simone, you were recently in Shenzhen.
Right, that's
I
right.
was,
and we didn't get to
yeah.
hear the story of that.
How
Now
was that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a video on Tested about it.
But you speak Chinese.
Ish, yeah.
You
But
you spent time living there.
I've lived in China for 1.5 years. I speak Mandarin Chinese, but in Shenzhen they speak Cantonese. But some people, most people can get around on Mandarin as well. But I visited the electronics market there and a lot of like different hardware startups in Shenzhen. There's a lot of fun stuff going on there. But the electronics market was just like, I don't know. There was so much stuff. Like
How big
everything.
is it? Like,
Is it a
when you say
building? Is
market,
it a city block? Is
Huge,
it multiple?
yeah, multiple blocks. And it's like you have, before you go there, you have some sort of image of actually being able to have an overview of the place and being able to see a little bit of everything. But it's just too big. Like you can't get a grasp of how big it is. And there's just a lot of people. And as an electronics enthusiast, I mean, I just got stuck on like tiny stuff and was like, oh my God, this little transistor and heat sink that they have here. And I had no chance of seeing
bins
all
full
of
of
it.
buttons.
Bins full of buttons, switches, and then like bigger stuff. I mean, like you have like drones and these like not called hoverboards. Somebody corrected me on it. It's actually called.
Oh no, there is no name for it.
Oh, really?
I know you're talking about the two-wheel stabilizing things.
That
There's
dumbass thing.
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So there's just everything on all different scales.
Was there something that totally like you were like, I didn't know this existed, or I didn't know you could buy these. This is awesome.
I think there were a lot of stuff that was like that, or just like, what is the market for these products?
Oh, cool. Like what?
But just a lot of different lamps and lights and in all different sizes and colors. And I just don't understand how it is a viable business model to have a stand there in one of the markets.
Can you buy individual things or do you have to buy in bulk?
You can buy both. So that's like one of the main benefits. I think it's individual from each stand, but I think that's one of the biggest differences from Shenzhen from different, from other electronics places, is that you can buy everything from just one piece to like 500,000 pieces. So a lot of hardware startups go there to source parts, and also a lot of makers go there just to check out random cool shit that they can build with.
I bet there's got to be a business of people who just play the middlemen, who have their database of what's there.
Oh,
and then you
totally.
order online and they go and fill the basket mail it
Totally.
out.
And
like these
also
eyes.
like people just being guides there, because it is a very, I mean, if you have like
need
a
a
set
guide.
list, if you have a set list of what you're, I mean, I was just like walking around and kind of seeing what there was. But if you have like, okay, I actually need to find these parts, then you need a guide.
It's like a Walmart greeter.
But I mean, there's also like when you get into the woods with a place that has that much stuff, just buying a switch can be a nightmare. You're buying like you could even spec, I want a 3-position toggle, 2-position double throw, and that's not nearly enough information.
Yeah.
Like there are so many subsets and subcategories, and
Yeah, and just minimal differences that you don't really know how they would interfere with or how they would affect your product. And I think also, and I'm like the worst shopper. I hate shopping. I get so indecisive. I'm like, oh, I could buy, but also not.
oh, so are you? So there's two kinds of people. There's maximizers and satisfiers, and maximizers always want to get the best possible thing, and satisfiers are like, that's good enough. Let's move on.
And don't need all the information.
Right.
And I'm very happy being a satisfier.
I think it
I'm a
really
satisfier.
just depends. I'm a maximizer, but I'm a maximizer in the sense that I'm like, I'm just not going to buy anything because I can't find the one that I want.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
But I mean, I bought a bike yesterday and I bought like the first best one. I mean, I did find one. It was a beautiful trek bike, my size, 52 centimeters. And
Craigslist or
yeah, just on
Valencia? Oh, cool.
Craigslist. But that was like first scroll through Craigslist. I found it and I was like, okay, I need a bike.
Nice.
Let's go
Well,
with
you
this
must
one.
have had this experience. I've had this too, where you go to look for something on Craigslist or eBay, and you pass by one, thinking, well, there's got to be a lot of those, and then
Yeah.
you realize that one you passed by was a
Right,
unicorn.
probably the best one. Yeah.
So that's good. I like the first thought, best thought, jump into it.
Yeah, it depends, but it's really for different. But I would just rather not buy stuff than buy stuff, I think.
Do you know if that market is open? Like, is it 24 hours or they actually have?
No idea.
Okay.
But probably a lot of, I mean, I think it's very individual.
Does it feel like you're on the set of Blade Runner or in the middle of like
That's
a steampunk
exactly what I
novel?
was going to say.
Adam,
That was a perfect segue. Oh,
perfect segue because Norm and Adam were mocking me for not having seen Blade Runner.
No, there was no
Mocking.
No
Maybe,
mock.
but you were
mocking.
fascinated with the fact that I had lived my life for 25 years without having seen it.
There's lots of gaps in my film education. I've never seen Gone with the Wind.
I've seen that twice.
Well, so there you go.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah,
Rhett Butler, you're missing out on a very hot old guy.
I know. So I'm never going to shame anybody for not having seen something. What you need to know about Blade Runner is it's just so radically important to me as a cultural marker. But it doesn't have to be for anybody.
We were not
else.
mocking. I think we were
No.
very excited at the prospect of being able to
Educate.
introduce and learning also.
And I think it's really nice. Just that notion of like not mocking people for not knowing is like, as soon as you have that in an environment, you're going to create a place where people are afraid of sharing what they don't know or asking questions.
Exactly. And even down to in the US, there's a cultural thing that we do when someone says, I've never seen Blade Runner. And you go like this, really? Go, yeah. And you go, you've never seen Blade Runner. You make them say it again, which is in and of itself a little bit aggressive, right? You're actually, you know what it's like when someone says, hey, let me put it this way. You're doing a project and you tell someone, we're going to do this way. And they go, okay. Do you really want to do it this way? And you're like, really? You're going to make me say it again? And it's aggressive
It is. And I think
to make
like,
you say it again.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, in like face-to-face interactions, but also like, I mean, that's something I see a lot in my, like in the comment sections on my YouTube channel or on my Facebook channel. Like whenever somebody asks something and they're like, how did you wire this thing? Then there's going to be a ton of people coming like, how can you not know? I was playing with this when I was 7 years old. This is a disgrace to the education system. And I'm like, that is not the way to go on about it. If people ask questions and you think it's a stupid question, explain it to them or like teach them how it's done and don't mock them for not knowing.
Well, and all the smartest people that I've ever met, the most common phrase that comes out of their mouth is, I don't know. Right? Like, oh, I've never heard of that guy you're mentioning. Tell me about him because I'd like to know. I mean, you know, that's like the MIT, the JPL scientists, the NASA scientists, you know, science is a specifically within the scientific community. I don't know is one of the most important places to park your brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
good philosophy here.
Good
We're
philosophy.
gonna watch Blade Runner.
Okay, so did you buy anything in Shenzhen that you came home with that you wouldn't have been able to get anywhere else?
No.
No.
You know what? I only managed to buy 2 JST connectors.
What pray tell is a JC connector?
JST. So it's
JST. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just it was for the pump that I have for the suction cup on one of my robot arms that I used that had broken, and I was like, wow, this is the right size. I'll just buy it, and it was like, I don't know, a couple of cents. And that was everything I managed to buy. But that's the thing. I just get overwhelmed, and I don't like buying stuff. I'm just always like, I could kind of, I don't need it. Yeah, I'm the worst.
I love buying stuff. I get an endorphin rush. I try and keep it to about 2 to 3 packages a day.
How much of a hoarder are you?
I'm not a hoarder in a traditional sense that I'm afraid to get rid of stuff. I am happy to get rid of stuff. In fact, friends of mine who visit this shop will attest that I love giving stuff away. I'll be like, oh, you're interested in that? I've got one upstairs. And I'll like hand it over. Like, I don't mind getting rid and dumping whole amounts of stuff in my storage space over and elsewhere in the Mission. I got rid of 5 truckloads of stuff just 3 months ago.
Oh, wow.
So hoarders tend to not be able to let go of things.
Right.
That's not me. I am a collector in that I love many. Like I have a box full of IDs from when I worked in the movie theater, and they would retire wallets that had been in the lost and found for 6 months, and I would always take them and take all the IDs out because for some reason I loved having just tons of other people's licenses and stuff. Like, I find that compelling.
You collect your badges from conferences.
I have my lanyard of holding of every badge I've ever gotten from every conference I've ever been to, going back to working as a PA at the Emmys, at the Grammys in 1986.
Oh, wow.
They're all different versions of a memory palace.
Yes. Oh, that's a really good way to put it.
Do you collect something, Norm?
Yes.
Norm collects
I
a lot
collect
of
a lot of stuff. Yes.
You're still not quite comfortable with it. You looked a little ashamed there.
I need more space.
You need more
This
space.
is your
Need more
intervention,
space.
Norm.
No.
One of the ways I'm dealing with my collecting is right now I'm archiving my costume collection, in which every piece is being photographed, serial numbered, put into an Evernote document that I can annotate, so I know where everything is. I know what I have, and I have a comprehensive list of it. And we're going to then do it with all the props in these cabinets. And this is partially for posterity. There's a large collection here. It is also for being able to disperse other stuff that I have. Like, when I'm building a costume, like Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name costume, I ended up with like 4 different engineer shirts to find the one that made the most sense for me for that costume. That means there's 3 I don't need.
They make up the story of that costume build.
Right. But I don't know. I don't need to keep those parts. Right. And I don't want to throw them away because I'm not wasteful. But I think I am going to either start an Etsy store or an eBay account in which I let go of this stuff.
As Adam Savage, or are you going to have it?
That's a good question, because I think so, because I think what I'd really like to do is, I don't need to sell this stuff. Like, I'm doing okay.
You can trade.
I can trade, and that's something I really would like to do. Is trade the stuff,
especially with members of the tested community who are building oftentimes their own projects and costumes.
Because when you trade something with someone, you get a story, right? You don't just get the object, but the object comes with a story, and the thing you traded them is a story. It becomes part of their lives, and it's an enhancement that I find. I find that interaction really rich.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the nice things. I mean, you were showing me around your workshop a little bit earlier today. It's like every piece is. I mean, it comes with a story.
Yeah. And when I hold fundraisers in this space occasionally, and one of the things I do in that fundraiser is just spend 2 hours answering questions about anything anyone's pointing at. And that's the thing, is as filled as this space is, I have a story about every object in here. It's why I have trouble remembering shit. So Shenzhen, is there something about it you anticipated that didn't come to fruition, or some aspect of it that really surprised you?
I think overall, I mean, as I said before, I kind of expected there to be a little bit more of a structure to it, that it's like, okay, this is the area where you can buy this type of stuff. And there is like a little bit of it, but it's also just very, I mean, I'm not sure about this, but I don't think that there's an overall organization that like organizes the market that there is. It's just individual shops and people renting. It's very organic. And so there's not really an overall structure to it. And I think that really surprised me. But yeah, and
it's much more anarchic than you thought.
Yeah. But I think overall, I often forget what my expectations were as soon as I've been somewhere.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, it's hard to remember your beginner's mind.
yeah, and that's always, I mean, I tend to actually write down whenever I meet a new person or go to a new space or start a new job. I tend to write down my expectations before I actually meet the person or go to the place.
That's a
because
nifty
it's a really
practice.
fun thing to go back to and be like, oh, right, I imagined it as being this. Because as soon, I mean, just like coming to your shop, I mean, you've had like some sort of mental image of what it looks like.
Yeah.
And now it's completely gone. It's just replaced with like,
Right.
okay, this is what it actually looks like.
This is something I told one of my sons. I said, okay, here's a mental exercise. You've been in your school now for 5 years. Think about when you first entered your school. Okay, he was doing that. Okay, now think about what your expectations were about how school would go. And he said, okay. And I said, now, how close were you? And he was like, way off. And I was like, right. That process will continue for the rest of your
Right.
life.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to like the YouTube comments and people, and because a lot of times people don't remember what it was like when they were in offices. And so they can't relate
Right.
because yeah.
I mean, I feel that just with like, I mean, I haven't done electronics or hardware for that long, but I really forgotten what it was like in the beginning. And I found some of my notes from the projects that I did in the start and some of the questions I had. And it just, I'm like, oh my God, I was so clueless. And it's such a great feeling because then you
Yeah.
feel that you've done some sort of progress because I feel in some part of me feels like I haven't learned anything. And then when you're looking back, you're like, wow.
Well, and I think this comes down to one of these things I think about a lot, which is expertise isn't about knowledge. It's knowledge of what are the proper questions to ask.
What to Google.
The names of things, knowing the names.
Yeah, I do a stage tour. I'm doing this touring around the country for the last 5 years, and I'm writing one now for next year. But when you do a stage tour of houses where you show up with trucks full of equipment that has to be put together, it turns out that theaters and managers and people who are in that industry, the only question they ever want to know about your tour is how many trucks. Like ours is a 2-truck show. And that phrase, it's a 2-truck show, carries with it most of what people need to know how long the load-in is likely to be, how complicated the breakdown is likely to be, the number of personnel they'll need to hire. All of that is exemplified in just the number of trucks. And I love that, like, they know the question to ask. Not what's your budget, what's the plot, how many people are in that.
It's good. Yeah.
So just knowing what,
Good
so now
questions,
you know what questions to go and
Yeah,
Google.
what questions to ask? And I remember that when I started teaching myself, it was really like I did not know what to Google or I didn't know how to break down a problem into problems I could actually solve. And it's just like Googling, like, it doesn't work. Is not going to generate any good replies. And I think just being able to post the right questions is, I mean, that's the thing you're going to do. I mean, especially when it's a field that's evolving so fast, you're not going to know the answers. You just need to know how to post the questions.
I do think it's funny that when I'm having a problem, occasionally I'll be like, why isn't this working? So I'll go to Google and I'll just say something like, why does, and it will auto-finish, iTunes suck. And I'm like, well, darn it, everyone else is asking that question. That means it doesn't have an answer.
You know, and I think also if you use Chrome, the autofill is contextual based on the page you're currently on. So it really is like finding a map. If you are searching if you're on a forum and then you start typing in the search box, the autocomplete are what people who are on that page have searched.
Yeah. I am in Chrome. That's exactly, I noticed that it's sort of very prescient.
Yeah.
Do you Google yourselves a lot?
No.
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 I'm wondering what the autocompletes for that would be.
I do know because people told me that in the first few years of Mythbusters, the most frequent autocomplete for searches of my and Jamie's name is, are they married?
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Really?
In the very beginning days of Mythbusters, Jamie and I were, a lot of people wondered if we were gay and thought we were a couple. Yeah, somebody sent me a discussion on a bear website. A bear is a specific subset of the homosexual community. They large men with big beards. I don't know how they self-identify, but bears are awesome. They're generally, they're not scary. They sometimes have a scary look about them because they're big guys with beards. But there's a bear forum that a friend of mine sent me a discussion about Jamie, and they were.
Turns out, Adam, you're the cub. You didn't know.
Who knew? Yeah.
You're the little spoon.
Yeah. Also, the reason not to Google yourself is that there's a bunch of Adam and Jamie /fic out there.
What is
that's
that
fan
slash?
fiction in which Jamie sexual fan fiction.
Oh, really?
And Rule 34 of the internet. Do you know Rule 34 of the
No.
internet? The Rule 34 states, if it exists, there is pornography of it.
Oh, right.
So,
Yeah.
you know, whether it's Frozen or Colonel Sanders or Mythbusters, you're going to find some fan
Porn
fiction
on
pornography
it.
of that thing, of that subset.
People are weird.
yeah, they totally
People are very weird. Gosh.
They totally are. So I have no interest in reading that. It's like it will not be able to be unseen.
You know what? I think that is a very good thing that you're not interested in seeing that.
Chris Hardwick also describes doing Google searches for yourself or reading comments of your articles about you as cutting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, cutting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like self-harm?
Because it is self-harm.
I think, yeah, because even if they're positive, my mom has this great saying of like, whatever feeds your ego kills the soul. And I think
that's a
even if it's
great-
nice comments, then you're just like, I mean, it is feeding some bad part of you.
It's true. And then I learned this early on. Someone on a Mythbusters forum said, Adam says the word actually way too much, which is totally debatable. And
You've stopped saying it since you read that comment.
right.
Oh, really?
Almost every time I use the word actually, I remember that comment.
Oh,
and
gosh,
that
yeah.
I don't need. I don't need that sort of gritting on top of the way I speak commented from some random person.
That's
right?
that's your stage fright tell.
Yeah.
Using
There's a word actually.
Actually,
Actually, it's not.
a friend of mine pointed out that Neil deGrasse Tyson is that I've said this on the podcast before.
maybe.
He's the physical embodiment of the word actually.
He uses it a lot.
No, but he is like you say, the moon's really far away from the earth. And he'll go, actually,
It's specifically.
it's specifically blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
I hear ya.
He's a stickler
He is a stickler for the facts.
for the facts.
For the facts.
Oh, we haven't talked about this
Okay.
since we recorded last, but before recording, we're talking about books. Like you read The Martian, Simone.
Yeah.
And you saw the movie? Did you?
I saw the movie. Yeah, I saw the movie before I read the book.
Hope you enjoyed both.
I really did. I think the book was, I mean, I think just the story behind the book of it just being a guy writing it as a hobby who's not a professional writer. And he just really got into all the different problems that staying and surviving on Mars would pose.
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting backstory. I think in some way I missed out. And I think that's a lot of the science fiction, especially when it's someone coming from like a real world or fantasy book, someone coming from a real book or a real world into like a fantasy world. I'm just more interested in all the psychological implications. What word am I trying to go for?
Implications.
Implications, maybe, that it would have on you. Because, like, imagine, I mean, it would fuck up everything you know. And I think it's something I would want to have a little bit more on in The Martian about just like, what does it feel like to be the only person
Right.
that's
On a planet.
on a planet?
It didn't get very dark.
It didn't get very dark, and he was a very lighthearted guy, and I think he kind of excused it with him being like this, like kind of, yay, everything is, I'm just going to solve this problem. But I would just want to have a little bit more of like, how would that actually affect a person?
Well, this is the thing is that they select astronauts based on their excellent physical and intelligence characteristics as much as they do upon their personality. It's a very specific personality type that makes an astronaut, and that personality type is very unflappable. And
In the movie, I think you get a little bit of that because, and Matt Damon delivers it perfectly because he talks about being the first person to do this, the first person to do that, and he ends with, I'm the first person to ever be alone on a planet. And when he says that, you feel it.
And actually in the book, I think it gets much deeper into that where he's cursing all the time and complaining. And but friends of mine who are astronauts have said there is no book that exemplifies the ideal astronaut's way of thinking than that book.
Oh, really? Because it is very like, okay, everything is fucked up, but I'm just going to focus on the problem at hand.
Exactly. Precisely.
And we were big fans of The Martian, both the book and the movie last year. You know, Adam interviewed Andy Weir, and we did a bunch of events around it. And another book that we were also equally obsessed with is Seveneves,
Yes!
Neil Stephenson. So
I
that's
knew
what I
you-
wanted to bring up, is that since we podcasted last, they've announced that Ron Howard is going to direct the movie
Yes.
Seveneves with the screenwriter of Apollo 13,
Yeah.
who's adapting it.
It's
So
very exciting.
if you haven't read this,
What is it?
So Seveneves is the name of the book.
Seveneves.
It is about the end of the world. It is hard science fiction. So it takes place just a few years in the future, a slightly undefinable few years in the future. And what happens is the moon blows up.
Oh.
And that's actually the first line of the book. The moon blew up without warning. And the resulting human drama that stems from the moon blowing up and eventually destroying the Earth. And the book spans 5,000 years. It's amazing.
Oh, wow.
And it's
So they don't follow a character?
They do, and we don't want to spoil too much about
Okay.
it. But the thing
But
that
they
you
die.
talk about, the thing that you talk about wanting to have some of that psychological trauma and implications of this.
I want the
thing,
psychological trauma.
You'll get that in this book.
Oh, yeah, Seveneves goes deep into all the different kinds of reactions one could have to such a life and world-changing
Need to read it.
event.
Yeah.
It's written by Neil Stephenson, who's famous for, along with William Gibson, establishing cyberpunk as a literary genre with Snow Crash, The Diamond Age, Cryptonomicon. He's one of my favorite writers. Neil's also a good friend. I actually saw him last week up in Seattle, and we were talking about the Seveneves back then before it was announced. It was very exciting. It's a great team to put that movie, to take that book and put it on screen. I still wonder how they're going to do.
I know, in 2 hours. That's you got to break it up. I feel like it's got to be a trilogy.
I don't know. I have no idea. This is not something that I know. It's a lot of material to cover. And the book has 3 distinct parts to it.
Yeah.
Yes, 3 distinct parts to it. And it's terrific. It's a really, really good read.
I mean, that's an interesting thing, seeing the movie, just how they solve all the problems.
And
Just
the
telling
Martian,
story.
The Martian is very fascinating because the movie has about a third of the problems. Mark Watney runs into about a third of the problems in the movie
Right.
that he does in the book
Yeah.
because the movie would be like 10 or 12 hours long.
Yeah.
Like an HBO miniseries.
Look, again, this is where I think television, we're in a great age because television can tell those long form stories. It can take, I don't think the novel translates to movies very well. I think the short story translates to a screenplay, right? Because a screenplay is usually about a day or two, or it's about a specific occurrence over a period of time, but it's very localized. And novels can go,
And it feels like, I mean, all stories or all movies, they kind of have the same, like, this is where we're starting off.
Your 3-act
Something's
structure,
happening. Yeah, there is a problem. We solve the problem. The problem comes back in a different form. Everything's going to hell. We solve it again. Everybody's happy. And that's just like one of the stories that is, I mean, the novel has like multiple of those. The book
Right.
has so many of those.
and in long form television too. A friend of mine got to watch David Fincher, one of my favorite directors, interview David Chase, The Sopranos.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And Fincher loves The Sopranos, and Sopranos is one of the things that got Fincher interested in long form television to do
House of Cards.
House of Cards. And Fincher was saying to David Chase, one of the things that he likes about the narrative of long form television is you've got such a long time to lay out a story that your main character can actually contradict themselves as humans do.
Yeah.
We are all contradictions. We're all hypocrites. We all change our minds, and all of that's just naturally part of being human. But within a feature film, you've only got 2 hours. You don't really have time to have the character contradict themselves and then come back.
Yeah, because then it's not going to be
It's going to feel weird.
yeah, it's going to feel weird. It's not going to feel like a real character. in some
Right,
way.
but in television, you do have that. In long format, 12 hours to tell a story, you do have the luxury of doing that. Like a great example of that are the Helen Mirren the series where she plays the detective on the BBC,
I haven't
Prime
seen it.
Suspect.
Okay.
Oh my God, the Prime Suspect shows are amazing.
Wow.
And there's like 5 different series, and they're long. Each one is 5 or 6 hours long or more. And they're about an aging female detective in the British police department, the English police department, dealing with being female, dealing with male-dominated industry, dealing with growing older, and it's wonderful. And again, you do get a character that can contradict themselves over the course of the thing.
I feel like we all need those Captain America notebooks, writing down the pop culture references. You see the Winter Soldier, and then listing out all the things the holes that we each need to fill for ourselves.
Did you see Captain America, the first one?
No.
Okay, so in it, what Norm's referring to is
Captain America, the first one? No.
that's fine. What Norm's referring to is Captain America gets unfrozen after 50 years in a sort of cryogenic
and he
sleep.
gets
And as he's woken up now in the 2000s, he's like, how do I catch up on culture since World War II? And people keep giving him suggestions, and he's writing down his suggestions in a notebook. And in the film, you catch a glimpse of what's in that notebook. But what's really cool is they changed what was in that notebook depending on the market that the film was released in.
Oh, really?
So in Britain, they had different things. And in other languages, they actually, in other languages, they had that language in the notebook and they listed different things.
I feel like I could need that for American culture.
That's
Yes,
exactly,
I think
yeah.
that-
Because
I think
moving
we
here
can
from
help you.
Sweden,
Yes.
it's a lot, because I mean, also I have a fairly American accent, and sometimes people mistake me for being American, and then I just lack some like very obvious piece of knowledge. I mean, just somebody being like, "Oh, I'm from Oregon," and I'm like, "Yeah, really? Where's that?" And they're like, "Who is this girl?" Or like beginning, like when I moved to San Francisco the first time, and I was paying for something in a store, and she was like, "Yeah, it's $1.50 or whatever," and I was just like going through the coins, and I was like, "What's this little guy?" Okay, yeah, so that's it. How many cents are there in a dime? No dimes, and I still don't know actually.
10.
Okay. Yeah, I need to. But there's a lot of like I would want to hand like a good like book like what is Skittles?
What is Skittles?
I didn't know before
Taste
I
the
moved here.
rainbow.
World may not know.
Pop-Tarts.
In fact,
No
actually, a
idea.
dime. I'll tell you. Oh, Pop-Tarts are great. Specifically, strawberry Pop-Tarts.
Gross.
Oh, they're delicious.
Gosh, they tasted like a pad with sugar on them. It was just
And
very
I don't
dry.
understand what the problem with that is. Oh, like a pad of paper.
I was
thing is
thinking
with the
menstrual
Pop-Tart is
pad,
she was
but I was thinking I don't see what the problem with that is.
That's called a vampire Pop-Tart.
Gosh.
I
We
think that's a
just went
great
there.
place to
I
stop.
think
We
so
just
as
went
well.
there.
We're going to start building that notebook. And thank you guys for watching. Hey,
Put your suggestions for bits of American culture that Simone should know about down
you.
below, and keep it clean, people.
yes.
Greatly appreciated.
Yes, and stuff for us as well. Things
Absolutely.
we always love taking recommendations, photos of workshops. We want to share those as well.
Now, this podcast is airing. We have gone to Australia. I'm actually still traveling while this podcast airs. But is there anything that folks should know about what's going up on Test?
Yeah, we have another project with our friend Frank Cablito. He teaches rotocasting, so we'll have that video on the site
That's fabulous.
this week.
All right.
Exciting.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Still Untitled this week. And I want to thank the sponsor of this week's episode. That sponsor, of course, TunnelBear. TunnelBear is a simple VPN app that makes it easy to browse privately and enjoy a more open internet. Just choose a country in the app, turn TunnelBear on, and watch as your bear quickly tunnels your internet connection into a new secured location. When TunnelBear is on, your internet connection is encrypted and your online activity is kept private from your internet provider, from advertisers, hackers, and other snoops. More importantly, TunnelBear does not log any user activity. The Bears have apps for all your desktop and mobile devices, plus a sleek Chrome extension. So try TunnelBear free with 500 megabytes and no credit card required. Just go to tunnelbear.com/untitled. And we'll see you next week. Bye.